What a turn of events.
Carson.
And a stunned defense over the Rams side gives up Chris Carson 12 yards inside the 25-yard line. And Youngblood really in trouble on that right side because he's just letting that right arm hang.
But he's gutting it out.
And if you're going to hand it off to Chris Carter, or Chris, excuse me, I'm getting my names mixed up here. Carson has been a great weapon for Youngblood here tonight. First and 10 from the 24. And it's going to be an offside. Looks like an encroachment against Grayson. They continue to shoot themselves in the foot with mental mistakes. Chris, I'll ask you, not a performance by a number one team that we've seen here tonight. Too many mental mistakes.
Yeah.
Lack of production, only 7 points.
Yeah, lots of turnovers.
And they've got to be approaching 100 yards in penalties, if not more.
Huge penalties.
And not just penalties, big ones at the worst possible time. 15-7, Parkview lead Grayson. 4:50 to play in this one. Parkview going down looking for more, and Chris right now with Stevenson's leg, a field goal makes it a 2-score game. I don't expect to see Youngblood throw. He's really having trouble with that arm. Looks like Carson another time, right side. Look at him just driving off tacklers. Moving the pile to the 10-yard line, first down.
Rumbling, stumbling, tumbling. One of the reasons why this Carson kid's a D1 prospect as well.
Absolutely right, Chris. That he's holding onto the football as they try to rip it away from him. Turned his back on the defender, just drove those legs. And that has really brought this Parkview crowd to life. Clock running, 4:20 to play in this one. They're going to call it first and goal from the 10-yard line. No need to rush. Youngblood takes his time under center. Carson and Williams behind him. And it'll be Carson another time with room on the left. If he can turn the corner, he's in. Dives for the cone. No call yet, no signal. And they're going to say out at the 1. Wow, what great acceleration off the corner, Chris.
He showed his versatility. The previous play, he just put his head down and put his thighs in it and drove and grinded forward for positive yards. That time he showed his speed to the outside and dove to the cone. Didn't quite get it, but puts Parkview in great position.
And Chris, the only thing he did wrong was he went out of bounds. 3:54 to play in this one. Parkview knocking at the door again, the length of a football away from 6 points. Timeout is going to be called, and that'll be Parkview. They want to talk it over. Well, Chris, seems like every game we show up at this season has been a barn burner upset. We saw Milton do in Alpharetta when they had no business doing it. We saw Gainesville go into Buford and handle their business and shock the Wolves. This has got to top both those upsets if the Panthers can make it stand up.
Panthers doing a really, really good job, but you've got to put the question mark up on the Grayson side. Easily the one of the sloppiest performances that I've seen them involved in thus far.
On paper, Parkview had no chance tonight. 0 chance on paper. I guess that's why they play out there on that big green thing instead of on paper. What a performance tonight, and I am so very impressed by Chris Carson.
Cecil said it at the beginning of the game, earlier before the game started. Any opportunity we get, we've got to take advantage of it. Grayson has been gracious enough to give Parkview a couple of opportunities, and Parkview's taking advantage of it.
1,150 yards last year for Chris Carson, averaging 5.2 a carry last year. Looking to put the cap on it here again. He's just got to make it about the length of a football. Touchdown, Parkview, Carson's in.
That might do it.
Chris Carson with an absolutely magnificent performance here tonight. And that is going to send them to the exits on the Grayson side grandstands. 21-7, pending the point.
Gritty performance by Youngblood. He was hobbling off the field, limping, holding his shoulder.
That young quarterback has absolutely grown up right in front of us here tonight, Chris. Stevenson for the point to make it 22-7. It's up, and it's good. Parkview lead Grayson 22-7 with 3:47 remaining in the football game. An absolute shocker here at the Jungle. Chris, I feel like we're in the time machine. We've gone back to 1993, buddy. And it's Parkview dominating anybody that comes in. What an amazing performance. Parkview looking to go 2-1. And Grayson, I can't believe I'm going to say this, looking to fall to 2-1.
And just as important, 0-1 in the region.
Absolutely. Region play, as you said, Chris, a little while ago, all bets are off when it's region play.
Grayson's offense, not one that's conducive to big plays. And, I mean, I'm going to stop using those big words like conducive. I'm going to go ahead and get right down to it. They're not used to being behind by 2+ touchdowns with under 4 minutes to go in any ball game.
And, Chris, it is not in their nature to give up 70-plus yards in penalties in a half. You just can't do that and expect to win. So Stevenson tees it up another time, and he has been a big weapon for Coach Cecil Flo all night long, not only on kickoffs, but he has been superb from the spot when they've called on him. You can feel the emotion rising up out of the grandstands here at the Big Orange Jungle. Another touchback. Schaefer gets driven deep. So Grayson will go to work down by 15 from their own 20-yard line. 3:47 to play in this one.
We have to pick a player of the game.
Going to need a fire extinguisher for David Friedlander's laptop over here, because that thing is smoking with the story of the night. North Gwinnett and Norcross, big story, a couple of big teams, Chris, but I don't think there's anything happening in Georgia High School Association football tonight to top this. Probably in the country. 1st and 10, Grayson. They need a lot in a very small amount of time. McTeer's going to air it out down the middle of the field. And the ball's underthrown. You're not going to get the pass interference on that one. Both guys just kind of whirling and twirling, looking back for the football. That'll stop the clock. 3:38 to play. 2nd down and 10.
Pretty impressive fling there by David McTeer. Got a good arm.
I think he waited a little too long, Chris. I think that's all he had in the gun and underthrew his intended receiver. So they go 2nd down and 10. 3-man rush to pressure McTeer now for Parkview. He fires far side, and he's got Schaefer, and that should be good enough for a 1st down, and that'll stop the clock at the 31-yard line.
Yeah, Kevin, Schaefer definitely the safety valve for this Grayson offense.
And, Chris, that pretty much, the scoreboard takes the running game essentially out of the equation now for Coach Mickey Kahn's Rams,
who haven't scored a point since the first quarter.
Since their very first possession of this football game, back when the sun was out. McTeer to throw, plenty of time with that 3-man rush. Fires, short hopped, and they're going to say incomplete. It was very close. Nope. A couple officials back there in the backfield had a good look at it, and they're going to say incomplete. He short hopped it. And I think if this was at a different level, they might challenge that one, but it was not to be. 3rd down, make that 2nd down and 10 for Grayson at their own 31. Clock stops again, 3:24 to play. McTeer to throw. Now he's going to feel some pressure from the backside. He's whipped down at the 20. Huge play. Sam Willis on the tackle for Parkview, and he was not to be denied, Chris. They came with everything that time.
Willis just showed some determination that time as he just drove himself past the offensive blocker for Grayson.
McTeer just ran out of room, tried to scramble near side into space. 2:53, and the clock is moving. 3rd down and a bunch now. Call it 18. Do or die time for the Rams. McTeer rolling and fires almost intercepted over there. That was a dangerous throw. A couple of guys had that one lined up. It's like Bryce Lewis had it in his crosshairs. And Kyle Williams over there looked like he might have had the best shot at it, number 21. That'll stop the clock. 4th down and 18 for the Rams. And McTeer obviously going to stay in there, and they're going to go for it here. 2:35 on the clock here at the Jungle. Some of the Grayson faithful have hung around to the bitter end, but a lot more sparse over there in the bleachers for the Grayson faithful. And a very nice hand, well-deserved, as the offense comes over during the timeout.
Well,
Chris, you said it about 10 minutes ago. You said, wow. And I think that pretty much is going to sum it up. I think that might be one of the headlines we see somewhere out there in publications across the country. Grayson falling.
very subpar performance tonight by the Grayson Rams.
I'd have to agree, Chris. I really would. Mistakes, mistakes, mistakes.
Taking nothing away from Parkview. They played a great game, and once when Grayson drove down the field at the beginning of the game, it looked as if it was going to be a long night. They moved the ball. I had mentioned that their offense was more of a ball control, and then they jumped up and hit that big strike to Corey Schaefer that gave them the quick 7-0 lead, and it looked like Grayson was just going to roll, or at least they started out very well, but then after that, absolutely nothing. They shot themselves in the foot many, many times. Parkview has done a really good job. Their defense has really stiffened, done an excellent job. They've taken advantage of some opportunities given to them by Grayson, and unless this becomes a first down, Parkview is going to win this ball game.
4th and 18, McTeer to throw, steps up in the pocket, and he's going to go down at the 20, loss of 4.
Guess who? That's Mr. Sam Willis again.
Sam Willis, a big step up here when they needed it at the end of the ball game. And Chris, we talk about big plays. The biggest play that I think we've seen here tonight was the field goal by Stevenson from 43 yards out that Cecil Flo took off the board. We haven't seen a huge pass play by Parkview. We haven't seen a huge run. Haven't seen anybody break one off. Maybe Rosser taking it out of the hands of the Grayson receiver on that last turnover might be one of the biggest plays we've seen. But this has not been a break it wide open kind of exciting performance by Parkview. Cecil Flo told us in his office before the game, you've got to have 11 guys playing every play, every minute of the game. And that is exactly what he's gotten here tonight.
The offense has done what they needed to do, but this win goes in the back pocket of the Parkview defense.
They got inside Grayson's heads. They forced Grayson to make mistakes, and they handed them close to 85 yards in penalties here in the second half at the worst possible times. A pair of 30-yard walk-offs against them. You cannot win a football game like that. Not only does it give the other team great position, it slides momentum completely over to their side of the football. Those mental mistakes will drain you and just take it out of you. And you can see, look at the body language of the Grayson players, arms down, not really eager to do much of anything over there. 2:29 to play.
New quarterback in the game for Parkview.
And that's going to be the end of the night for Youngblood. That's
like
going to be Carson left side, nothing doing there. He might lose a couple.
Looks like Chris Remchick in the ball game, the junior quarterback for Parkview.
And he's coming directly over to discuss the play selection with his coaches.
No timeouts remaining for Grayson. They can't stop this clock.
Approaching 2 minutes to play in the ball game. And now they're going to a huddle, Chris, back there on the Parkview side. They are absolutely just squeezing every second out of that clock. And they're going to go Wildcat with Carson. And he's just going to slide to the outside. Not much happening there. And you got to be careful when you let up like that, Chris. That's a good way to get hurt if you don't go full speed. He's going to lose yardage back to the 30-yard line. 1:35 to play. That'll be 3rd down and about 18 for the Panthers.
And if you Parkview, you run 2 more plays, and if you give Grayson the ball with 15 seconds left, that's okay.
Down by 15, and Chris, as you documented, Grayson, after their first possession of the game where they did score on the big play to Schaefer, have gone flat. And then some. They drove on that flat tire and messed up the wheel. Absolutely shocking performance, or lack thereof, by the number 1 Grayson Rams here tonight. Carson gets the handoff up the middle, and there's nothing happening there. His helmet comes popping off. So that'll give the crowd a good look at that big smile of Chris Carson. And that'll stop the clock with the equipment timeout.
I mentioned earlier to you that we got to pick a player of the game. I think you jokingly said something about Cecil Flo, although that would be a good candidate.
But you know what? We expect that from Cecil Flo, veteran coach, doing exactly what a Cecil Flo would do in this situation, knowing he was outmanned on that side, or so it looked. But, Chris, if you're going to ask me for my vote, I got to say Chris Carson is easily my pick.
Carson, or my vote may go to the Parkview defense. The entire defense, just because they completely shut down Grayson after the initial drive of the first
We'll
quarter.
give them the honorable mention with a couple of big asterisks next to it. 4th down and 20. And they are going to go with a give left side. Look at Rosser fighting for every inch of it. He's going to get knocked out of bounds at the 15-yard line, short of a first, and that will bring the Grayson offense back onto the football field with 12 seconds remaining. So, Chris, as you said, rightfully so, the defense will be on the field to get a well-deserved hand when the horn finally sounds on this one. What a night at the Big Orange Jungle.
A shocker in Lilburn. David, that's a pretty good headline, by the way.
I'll tell you what, this man's notes and his laptop are absolutely smoking over here. And I think that's probably going to be the case for a lot of writers here tonight, Chris. 12 seconds remaining in the football game. McTeer going through the motions, and that'll be incomplete and stop the clock with 8 seconds to go. Want to remind folks to stick around for the PlayOnSports.com post-game show. Chris and I will wrap this one up if we possibly can attempt to wrap this one up, buddy. And we'll give you our players of the game and talk about where we're going to be next week. So stick around for the PlayOnSports.com post-game show. In just about, well, we'll call it 8 seconds of football time. Here's McTeer. 12-step drop. They're going to throw a screen. And you can hear the Parkview crowd counting it down. And the horn sounds. The Parkview Panthers have defeated the Grayson Rams by the score of 22-7 and knocked off the number 1 team in the country here in Lilburn. An absolute stunner at the Big Orange Jungle. We'll be back to wrap it up in just a moment. But football fans, remember, Play On Sports is on Facebook and Twitter, and you're going to need it after this one, giving you news and information and links to great highlights. You can follow us at Play On Sports on both Facebook and Twitter, and also access thousands of live and on-demand games on YouTube at youtube.com/PlayOnNetwork. Keep up with all the high school action every week from your destination for high school sports, PlayOnSports.com. We'll be back to the jungle to wrap this one up in just a minute, where Parkview has defeated Grayson 22-7. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Big Orange Jungle. City of Lilburn is alive as the Parkview Panthers have knocked off the #1 team in the United States. The Grayson Rams go down 22-7, and the student body has stormed the field here at the Big Orange Jungle, and a very, very well-deserved celebration is underway. Back with Chris King, Jason, our producer, and yours truly, Kevin Beck. I'm out of breath, Chris. But it is so nice to watch the home team celebrate in a situation like this where on paper the Panthers had no business being in this football game. The story has got to be the Rams absolutely imploding mentally and the Parkview Panthers doing exactly what they needed to do to win this football game. 22-7 your final. Parkview beats Grayson. Your turn, buddy. I'm out of breath.
Turnovers, mistakes, lapses, mentally, huge penalties. That's the storyline for Grayson. That's a tough one. You don't want to lose. You definitely don't want to lose your first game of the region. They do have plenty of time remaining in the season. They will be back. We know this Grayson Ram team is one of the best in the nation, and they will be back next week to fight on towards what they want, which is a region championship, and get back to the state tournament. On the other side, one of the true tacticians in the state of Georgia, Cecil Flo. We talked to him. We had a candid. We've known Cecil for a long time. We had a candid. Cecil laid out what he wanted to do, and he did it. He did exactly what he said he wanted to do.
And seemed unfazed by the task in front of him here tonight, Chris. He was cool as a cucumber in his office when we met with him prior to kickoff, and he said exactly what his team did tonight. An absolute masterful job of coaching his kids. He said they had to play every down. 11 guys had to be in it every single minute of the game. And that's exactly what they got, Chris. They rattled Grayson into making mistakes. And boy, did Grayson hand them so many opportunities at the worst possible times. After taking an early lead, 7-0 off the long pass to Schaefer from McTeer. Looked like it was over. Looked like it was going to be what it was on paper. The #1 team in the country, blowing out a team that hadn't scored a touchdown all season. But after that, Cecil Flo rallied his troops. The defense, like a prize fighter on the ropes in that first half, held on, absolutely just held on, did not go down, got the turnovers they needed, and kept their offense in this ball game. And in the second half, it was mistake after mistake after mistake by Grayson with miscues and mistakes mentally. But I think the big turning point in the game, Chris, this thing hinged after Tyler Stevenson knocks it through from 43. You get the roughing the kicker call, which was enough yardage for an automatic first. I think the entire city of Lilburn held their collective breath. And Coach Flo, he didn't signal the referee. He went out and talked to him, said, this is what I want to do. We're taking those points off the board, and we're going back on first down. They converted. They got the touchdown. That got the crowd into it. That demoralized Grayson. And I really think that situation there turned this ball game on its back. And then talk about those penalties, Chris. You can't have two 15-yard penalties against you on the same play twice in a football game and not expect it to hurt you.
And both sets of penalties turned into points for Parkview, which put them ahead to stay.
And it was almost a little demoralizing when Parkview did get their first touchdown and had the extra point blocked. So we scored against Grayson, but we're still not there. It was kind of the palpable feeling around the stadium. But then, as we said, the defense held on, got them to the second half. They kept the Grayson offense off the field. They got the mistakes on special teams. They got the big plays on defense when they needed it. How about Rosser just yanking that ball out of the receiver's hand after the reception? I mean, and we talked about it a few moments ago. No really huge, big breaker plays, but just enough, in addition to the miscues and the lapses in concentration by Grayson. Parkview did what they had to do, and they come out of here with a celebration. What a ball game.
At the beginning of the second half, I said, the longer the underdog hangs around, the more confident they get and the more they feel like they can win the game and belong in the game against a powerhouse like Grayson.
And you could see it in the body language of the Grayson Rams players when Parkview did not wilt after that initial score. They didn't wilt with that just unending pressure of that offense. They were on the field. The defense of Parkview was on the field for 2/3, maybe more, of that first half. But they did not wilt, Chris. They held strong, and they got the reward in the second half. An absolutely superb performance by that defense.
And Kevin, you and I, we've been all over the state broadcasting many, many football games. I said it at the beginning of the game. I still believe one of the toughest places to play is at the Big Orange Jungle in Lilburn. May not be as intimidating as it once was.
Not loaded with the star power that it was during their big years.
Until tonight. But the 12th man tonight, once Parkview realized they were in the game, they could play with Grayson, they got the lead, and then the jungle started rumbling. And when the jungle starts rumbling, it usually turns out not too well for the opposing team. Now, don't get me wrong. Grayson
will be back.
Yeah, they'll be back. I mean, they've got to go back to the board, and they've got to get rid of the mistakes. As good as their offense has been, they're known for their defense. Their defense has just been stingy, and they didn't get it done tonight. But at the same time, the offense committed a lot of penalties. The special teams committed a lot of penalties, and I think Cecil Flo just outfoxed the Fox tonight.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Chris, and it wasn't penalties that were dubious. It wasn't like, oh, the refs are against us, that was a bad call. Those were legitimate calls. We saw each and every one of them, and Grayson just paid the price for mental mistakes, and I think they learned a huge lesson here tonight. I think Mickey Kahn will get this team back. I have no doubts, but I think the lecture and the meetings and the practices coming up are going to be different from here on out for Grayson. They got punched in the mouth, and they got a little blood on their chin, and I think that's the first time that they've been stunned, and they're going to learn from it. Parkview, I mean, the sky's the limit coming off of this one. What they can build on from this and take from this emotionally as a team and build. Rob Youngblood, what a performance. Chris Carson, an absolute star here tonight. And I think Rosser had a great game as well.
Sam Willis on defense, phenomenal ball game.
He did a nice job as well. So a lot of really, really good things come out of this one tonight. I hesitate to say that Parkview's back, but I would not say that Parkview's going to be a doormat for people going forward either. So I really am impressed by everything I saw here tonight. Pretty surprised because I was one of those people that thought this might be a Grayson rollover and we'd be sitting here, talking about next week already, but it was not to be, and we had a fantastic contest here tonight. Final 30 seconds, I'll give it to you, buddy.
The Rams, they won the state championship last year. They were undefeated. They won the first 2 games of the season, so they were coming in, I believe, on a 17-game winning streak. Sometimes it's good to get that loss under your belt because eventually it's going to happen. You're going to lose a ball game. Better to lose now than later on in the season. They've shown that they have a couple of flaws, or at least they did tonight. They go to the drawing board. They regroup and come back and refocus. They're going to be there. This is Parkview's night. Taking nothing away from Parkview. This is their night. They came out and 11 guys on offense and 11 guys on defense in orange outplayed the 11 on offense and 11 on defense on green and white tonight. Tonight is definitely the night for Parkview Panther football.
And I'll add one thing to that. I think when folks read this story, they're really going to have to read the entire story. How Parkview got this done. So many elements came together to get Parkview this victory. So that should do it. At least for us, I think the party will rock on well into the night here in Lilburn, but that'll do it for us here at theplayonsports.com. Invite you guys to join us next week. We're going to be back at Gainesville for the Red Elephants, Chris. Last time we saw them, they were upsetting the Buford Wolves, and they're going to host Appalachia on our Friday night game of the week for playonsports.com. We invite you to join us for that one. It has been my absolute pleasure to bring you this one along with my buddy Chris King, our producer Jason, and our entire playonsports.com crew. We want to thank you for being with us and follow us every Friday night on playonsports.com. So from the jungle, it is Parkview 22 and Grayson 7, your final. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Fourth and 10 from the 41-yard line for St. Augustine. Kennedy dropping back to pass. Looking left, firing, incomplete, intended for Noland. No penalty flag.